So as we know, we use energy to move things, to build things, to heat, cool, and light our homes and workplaces. Our food systems use a lot of energy. And all of these areas where we use a lot of energy currently are the areas where we have the most opportunity for improvement. So we can cut a lot of waste at lots of different stages of different processes. Here in the US, for example, we use lots of energy to plant, water, harvest, process, ship, and store food. And we waste about 40% of the food we produce. In many other parts of the world, food production is not as mechanized and industrial as it is here. It's more local, using energy from human labor, and a lot less energy overall. About how much of the food produced in the United States ends up being wasted? Around 40% of food produced in the United States is wasted, and this includes food lost during production, transportation, retail, and in homes. People who live in more industrialized countries like the United States tend to use a lot more energy than people living in other parts of the world. In fact, even though people living in the US only make up about 4% of the global population, according to the EIA, the Energy Information Administration, the US used 16% of all commercial energy globally in 2023. This means that we in the US have a lot more opportunity to make significant reductions in our energy use compared to other nations. This is Unit 4, Energy Consumption. After this unit, you should be able to differentiate between energy efficiency and energy conservation and provide examples of each, explain why electricity is a flexible form of energy, explain why some energy sources are subsidized, explain the relationship between energy services and energy efficiency, and describe energy savings opportunities in the transportation sector. It's useful to start with the big picture. Where does our energy come from and where does it go? The EIA has really good data on this, and the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory has made some really cool visualizations to help us understand it. This information is a little bit old now, but it gives you the general idea. This is a Sankey diagram showing the energy flow in the US. In 2023, the estimated energy consumption in the US was 93.6 quadrillion BTUs. And a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion, which is 1,000 billion, which is 1,000 million. So let's take a quick look at orders of magnitude and then jump back into the Sankey diagram. So 100,000, that's not too hard for us to get our heads around. If you make $100,000, you're probably doing pretty okay, at least for now. 1 million is 1,000,000, so you have 6 zeros. 1 billion is 1,000 million, so add 3 more zeros and now you have 9 zeros. 1 trillion is 1,000 billion with 12 zeros. And 1 quadrillion is 1,000 trillion with 15 zeros. Okay, so in 2023, the estimated energy consumption in the US was 93.6 quadrillion BTUs. And in Unit 1, we looked at watts, megawatts, and gigawatts, but we didn't really talk about BTUs other than they exist. So let's take a quick look at them. British Thermal Unit, or BTU, is a measure of the heat content of energy sources. Technically, 1 BTU is the amount of heat required to increase the temperature of 1 pound of liquid water by 1 degree Fahrenheit at the temperature that water has the greatest density, which is approximately 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So basically what we need to remember about BTUs is that they measure heat content of energy sources, and they're useful because they let us compare different energy sources. 93.6 thousand billion BTUs is a whole heck of a lot. So on the left, we have all our primary energy sources. These are the resources that we extract from the earth in the case of coal, oil, and gas, and nuclear, which is uranium ore, and the resources that we much more gently harvest, like solar, hydro, wind, and geothermal. The pink boxes here show the sectors that use the energy. So we have residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation. The lines connecting the primary sources to the industries represent the amount of each source going into each industry. So the thickness of the lines gives us an idea of the amount of energy. So the thicker the line, the more energy. The orange box shows electricity generation and the primary energy sources used for electricity generation. The gray boxes on the right show the energy services received, or the energy actually used and the rejected energy. So remember from Unit 1, the first law of thermodynamics states that energy can't be created or destroyed, it just changes from one form to another. And the second law of thermodynamics states that when energy changes from one form to another, some of it is less usable, and if we don't capture it, we lose it to the environment as heat. So the rejected energy here is that energy lost as heat. In the US in 2023, the energy lost or rejected was 65.7% of the total energy produced. That means that over 65% of all of this energy didn't go to useful work. It was lost to the environment as heat. The energy that was actually used, or the energy services, was less than 35%. And all of the energy on the left is paid for, meaning governments and industry know how much they're extracting and they know the cost to do that. We as consumers, generally we only care, or in a lot of cases only are aware of, the energy services that we get. In most cases, we don't really know where our energy comes from or how efficient or inefficient it is. We just care that we can heat and cool our homes, watch TV, drive cars, and do all of those different things that use the energy. These are the energy services. Speaking of driving cars, this energy flow chart shows just how much transportation is dominated by oil or petroleum. Let's take a look at the diagram for California. It looks pretty similar here, but notice we're talking trillions of BTUs in California, not quadrillions like in the entire country. Over 90% of the energy coming from petroleum goes to transportation, and almost 80% of that is lost as heat. We can see a small, but we know it's increasing, amount of energy coming from electricity. So this represents the electric vehicles, or EVs, that are plugged into the electrical system. So let's take a look at electricity generation. Electricity, in the context of usable energy, is the flow of electrons in a wire. One of the things that's so awesome about electricity is that it's a versatile form of energy. It can easily be converted into light, heat, or motion. It can be released in very small, precise amounts, or with enough power to move a huge freight train at high speeds. Another amazing thing about electricity is that it can be generated from almost any energy source. So let's talk about that process for a second. In most cases, electricity is produced when an energy source spins a turbine. For example, coal can be burned to turn water into steam to drive a turbine, and the turbine turns a generator. Inside the generator, a bundle of wires spins around a magnet, or a magnet spins inside a bundle of wires. And the spinning causes electrons to move in the wire, and the flow of electrons is electricity. So what do we mean when we say electricity is a versatile form of energy? Electricity can be used in lots of different ways. It can be converted into light, to heat, and into motion. As we see in these charts, electricity is generated with solar energy, nuclear energy, hydro, wind, geothermal, gas, coal, biomass, and petroleum. So every primary source of energy can be used to generate electricity. We can see that most of our electricity in California comes from fossil gas. So gas, and as we know, that's mostly methane, is used to generate electricity that's then transported through transmission and distribution lines to our homes, businesses, industrial practices, and to a lesser degree for transportation. In California, about 52% of the primary energy that goes into electricity generation is lost or rejected. But what is it nationally? It's 59% nationally. Why is the proportion a little higher? Here's California again. And here's the US again. Now keep your eye on the black line coming from coal. In California, we don't have a lot of coal-fired power plants, but it's a different story at the national level. Despite that, over 64% of our energy is wasted. Why do we waste so much energy? One of the reasons is a huge amount of energy that's lost as heat from fossil fuels during combustion. For example, a gas-fired power station only converts about 50% of the gas burned into electricity. Non-combustible sources like solar and wind, on the other hand, don't have this problem. They produce electricity more directly. There was a study out of Oxford University that estimated the energy savings from electrifying industry, buildings, and transportation to their full potential. And they found that the world would use 40% less energy. And that's not insignificant. The other reason we waste so much energy has to do with its cost. Historically, fossil fuels were super cheap, but that's not the case anymore. Unfortunately, we built this entire system acting like these non-renewable resources would be cheap and abundant forever. And now we know that's just not the case. Now, fossil fuels are kept artificially cheap through government subsidies and tax breaks. And when we say government, that's us, the taxpayers. You and I are subsidizing this inefficient, polluting system. At the systems level, we waste a lot of energy and a lot of money. Why is over 64% of our energy wasted? A lot of energy is lost as heat from fossil fuels during combustion. Also, fossil fuels are kept artificially cheap through subsidies and tax breaks, so this doesn't impact the physical waste of energy, but it does slow the transition to cleaner, more efficient sources. The clean energy transition means replacing the coal, oil, and gas on the left with electricity from solar, hydro, wind, and geothermal. Essentially, we need to replace all the dark green, gray, and light blue lines with orange lines. This is going to be a major change for our energy system, and the grid is going to have to handle a lot more electricity. Of course, this has policy implications. If the people elected to represent us, our representatives, don't know about the energy and financial savings of switching to non-combustible energy sources, they might be discouraging investments in renewables in favor of keeping the fossil fuel-based system that we currently have. In other words, if they don't see anything wrong with the current system, they might not advocate to change it. And that's where we come in. We have to make them see the benefits of moving away from this wasteful and polluting system. In the US, electricity is delivered to consumers through an electrical grid that's made up of a network of transmission and distribution lines. Some of the challenges with managing the grid include the high cost of energy production and the potential of transmission and distribution equipment to be overloaded during peak demand times, like afternoons on the hottest summer days when everyone is running their air conditioner to stay cool. And managing the grid is a really precise balance. Utilities have to match energy distribution exactly to energy demand, and if they don't get it perfectly right, that could result in power outages or blackouts. Ideally, utilities would like demand to be constant, but it's not. Demand varies throughout the day and from season to season. The California Independent Systems Operator, or California ISO, or CAISO, manages the flow of electricity across high-voltage, long-distance power lines, so those transmission lines. If you're watching this from somewhere else, you can look up your ISO. So CAISO also operates a wholesale energy market, and they oversee transmission planning. You can go to the CAISO website to see real-time supply and demand information, and the link is in the course overview. So here we have the demand in megawatts for a day in May 2025. We have the hours along the bottom, or the x-axis, and the megawatts on the side, so the y-axis. During the day, demand is highest in the morning and in the evenings before and after people go to school and to work. So these are the times when people are getting out of bed and starting their morning routines, or then coming home from work and school and turning on the TVs, lights, and oven, or maybe even running a couple loads of laundry. So the supply of energy has to be matched perfectly with demand, which is changing second by second. And the grid has to be able to accommodate the maximum energy demand. So on hot days when everyone's running their air conditioner, the grid has to be able to supply all of that energy, or there's going to be outages. And how we use energy impacts all of this. Improving energy efficiency and conserving energy are crucial strategies to reducing energy waste, which also costs us money. We can think of energy efficiency as how much useful work we get out of a unit of energy. Improving energy efficiency means getting the same energy service with less energy. For example, fuel efficiency. A more efficient car accomplishes the same task as a less efficient car. They both drive you and your stuff around, but one uses less energy or fuel to do it. Energy conservation usually includes some kind of behavior change to use less energy. For example, reducing the number of miles you drive in your car, or wearing a sweater instead of turning up your heater. Both energy efficiency and energy conservation accomplish the same task, which is saving energy. And energy efficiency and conservation are important levers within our control to reduce the environmental damage related to our current energy production system. Let's take a look at energy efficiency first. There's a lot of room for improvement, both at the systems level and at the individual level for most of us. Let's look at lighting or illumination as an example. Theoretically, energy efficiency ranges from 0 to 100%. So let's start at the power plant with 100 units of energy from coal. Because of the heat loss through combustion, we immediately lose about 62 units of that 100, so the remaining 38 units of energy is what enters the transmission lines. During transmission and distribution, another 2 units are lost. Some research says that line loss can be up to 10%. In this illustration, we have 36 units entering the home and going to that light bulb to give us the energy service of illumination. Of that 36 units, 34 lost as heat, and only 2 provide the useful work of lighting the home. So ultimately, with an incandescent bulb, 98% of the energy is lost and only 2% is useful. Here we have a thermal or heat image showing incandescent, light-emitting diode or LED, and compact fluorescent light bulbs. The thermal imaging shows us the heat loss of the different kinds of light bulbs, White is hottest and blue is coolest. The incandescent bulb on the top wastes more energy as heat than do the LED and fluorescent bulbs. The most efficient bulb is the LED, which is 20% efficient. But 20% still doesn't sound very efficient at all. But there's a big difference between 2 to 3% and 20%. If everyone in the world only used LED bulbs, that would make a big difference. So as you know, we pay for every kilowatt hour that we use at home, and there's lots of opportunity to save energy and money through efficiencies. According to the Public Advocate's Office, the average residential electric bill in San Diego was $123 in July 2024. And electric bills are increasing due to higher electricity use. For example, as it gets hotter, we use more air conditioning, and overall electricity prices. Because energy burden is highest for low-income households, San Diegans who are already struggling financially are the most impacted from higher rates and bills. According to the EIA, more than half, or 52% in 2020, of U.S. Americans' energy consumption went to just 2 uses. And those uses are space heating and air conditioning. So these are the areas where we can save the most. Here are some ideas for saving money and energy at home by increasing energy efficiency. So even if you don't make all the decisions around your home, you can influence the people you live with who do. Insulate your home and weather strip and caulk doors, windows, light fixtures, and wall sockets to eliminate drafts. High-efficiency windows and thick window coverings can also help. Planting trees that lose their leaves in the winter can keep your home more comfortable year-round. In the summertime, it will block the sunlight, and in the winter, it'll let it in. Similarly, you could use insulated window coverings and close them at night and on hot, sunny days. If you have a fireplace, keep the damper closed when you're not using it. Clean or replace air filters and heating and cooling systems, and check ducts for leaks to make sure they're operating efficiently. Don't block heating and cooling vents. Avoid heating and cooling unused rooms by closing doors and vents. Front-loading clothes washers are more efficient than top-loading ones. Actually, when any appliance nears the end of its life, be sure to pay attention to the yellow Energy Guide sticker to compare the efficiency of possible replacements. Use LED light bulbs and avoid using incandescent bulbs. Use a water heater thermal blanket and insulate exposed hot water pipes. If you think about it, gas water heaters are basically massive kettles that are kept on high just in case you need hot water. If you can replace your gas water heater with an electric heat pump water heater, that would make a big difference. Heat pumps don't use gas to heat water. Instead, they use electricity to move ambient heat where you need it. Heat pump water heaters are much more efficient than gas. You can also get heat pumps to heat and cool air instead of a traditional air conditioner. These are also called ductless mini splits. We should all aim to cap the gas or not use fossil gas in our homes as much as possible. Make sure your refrigerator coils are clean. You can just vacuum them out every now and then. If you have a gas stove, don't use it to heat up or cook small portions. Use a microwave instead. Remember, energy services are the tasks performed using energy. They're the benefits we get from using energy. They're things like our refrigerator keeping our food cold, or our washing machine washing our clothes. Another way of defining energy efficiency is it's a measure of the percentage of an energy source that we can transform into these usable services, like the light bulb example. More efficient practices and technologies allow us to get more energy services from a given amount of an energy resource. So how can we describe the relationship between energy services and energy efficiency? Better energy efficiency lets us get more energy services from an energy source, so we're getting more of the service with the same amount of energy, or the same services with less energy. Now that we talked about energy efficiency, let's look at energy conservation. Conserving energy usually involves some kind of behavior change to use less energy. So instead of getting the same service from less energy, which is efficiency, conserving involves a change in the service we expect from energy. For example, wearing warm clothes in the winter and lighter clothes in the summer will keep us comfortable indoors while avoiding excessive space heating and air conditioning. There are lots of conservation opportunities related to food. Energy is lost at every step of the way between the field and our plates, including all the processing, packaging, and transportation, which is often refrigerated. Also, as we've seen, producing meat requires a lot more energy per calorie than producing plants, like vegetables, fruits, and grains. Here are some ideas for saving money and energy at home through energy conservation. Install a programmable thermostat, which can cut heating and air conditioning costs up to 33%. Use a house fan instead of or in addition to air conditioning, which can make rooms feel more comfortable at higher thermostat settings. Turn off lights, computers, TV, and other electronic devices when they're not in use. Lower the temperature setting on your water heater to 120 degrees or 140 degrees if you have a dishwasher. Install low-flow shower heads and faucet aerators to reduce the amount of hot water used. Only do full loads of laundry and dishes. Don't buy into those stupid dishwashing liquid commercials that tell you to run your dishwasher just for a few items. Keep in mind that the role of marketing is to get you to buy products. They typically don't care if you waste water or waste energy or put chemicals into our waterways, as long as you're using their product and a lot of it. Instead of drying clothes in a machine, consider air drying them. Purchasing local food, or even growing your own, reduces your contribution to our energy-intensive industrial food system and supports the local economy instead. There's a farmer's market in different neighborhoods every single day of the week in San Diego, so we're really lucky that this is pretty convenient for us. Eliminate energy vampires, or appliances that draw electricity even when they're not in use. One research study showed that households in the US waste about $3 billion annually on these energy vampires. Examples of energy vampires include cable and satellite boxes, TVs, video game consoles, speakers and sound systems, desktop and laptop computers, printers, and kitchen appliances. An easy energy-saving practice is to plug all your vampires into one power strip with an on-off toggle and toggle it off when you're not using them. Terilyn Rose, who manages financial fitness and coaching services for California Coast Credit Union, she recently told me that she got her SDG&E bill down from $150 a month to $49 a month, just by plugging all her energy vampires into power strips. She uses power strips for everything except for her refrigerator and washer and dryer, and just doing that saves her $100 a month. She also said she helped one of her clients reduce her energy bill from $300 to $175 a month, which is a savings of $125 a month, which adds up to $1,500 a year. A lot of these practices are best for people who pay utility bills or have control over what happens in their home. But even if this isn't you, for example, if you're a high school or college student or aren't in a situation where you pay utility bills, there are still meaningful ways for you to save energy by taking actions impacting the things that you do control. Although we don't see it, how we use data has big energy implications. Switching our browser and search engines to Ecosia is an easy way to ensure that the revenue that our searches generate goes to planting trees and supporting tree stewards around the world. Cryptocurrencies use massive amounts of energy because crypto mining involves adding blocks of transactions to a blockchain and then solving complex cryptographic puzzles. And this requires a lot of computational power, which requires a lot of electricity, which increases pressure on the grid. Similarly, AI uses a lot of energy and drives higher water usage, emissions, and e-waste. So if you can avoid crypto and limit your use of AI, the impacts can be pretty significant. Transportation is one of the most energy-intensive activities, and in Southern California and in other parts of the country, it's a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. If you drive, you have a big opportunity to save energy. You can do this by driving less, combining trips, taking public transit, and carpooling. And carpooling is much more fun than driving alone anyway. Avoiding rapid acceleration and braking increases your gas mileage, which means you're getting more miles, so that energy service, from the same amount of energy or fuel. As I mentioned, each of us can save a lot of energy just by choosing to eat lower on the food chain. Instead of buying new clothes or devices, you can choose secondhand or refurbished. Cutting down on consumption actually goes a really long way towards saving energy and pollution. Whenever possible, we can repair things that break instead of tossing them and then replacing them. There's a green student guide in the course overview document for students looking for ways to be more sustainable and save energy. And always remember that your actions influence others. Whether you realize it or not, people pay attention to your actions. So sticking with transportation, there are huge opportunities to save energy in transportation through both efficiencies and conservation. So let's go back to the energy flow chart for California. 3,045 trillion BTUs is about 47% of 6,532 trillion BTUs. So about 47% of all the primary energy in California comes from petroleum or oil. And about 90% of that goes to transportation. Of course, this isn't just passenger vehicles. It includes trucks, motorcycles, buses, boats, trains, and airplanes. According to the California Energy Commission, or CEC, our transportation sector accounts for about 50% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions and almost 90% of diesel particulate matter pollution. It's no wonder because a combustion of oil creates that pollution. There are also many hidden costs. In fact, a report by the International Center for Technology Assessment estimated that the true price of gas is over $15 a gallon. The price we pay at the pump now doesn't include government subsidies and tax breaks for oil companies, car manufacturers, and road builders, or costs related to pollution control, higher medical bills, and health insurance premiums because of illness caused by pollution. The production and use of motor vehicles is a dirty business, and we pay the price financially and with our health. Now we can see why it's so important to find low-carbon solutions to our transportation needs. Most of the energy in a gallon of gas is lost as heat, and most of the rest of it is wasted moving the weight of the vehicle around. The actual amount of energy from the gas that goes to moving the passenger and their things, like groceries for example, is actually really small. Driving habits also impact fuel efficiency. Quick acceleration requires more energy than smoother acceleration, and changing speeds uses more energy than maintaining consistent speeds. Of course, electric vehicles are a lot more energy efficient than combustion engine vehicles. So we get the same energy service we want, but it requires a lot less energy. So same task, less energy. In cities across the country, it's not uncommon for people to spend an hour or more of their day stuck in traffic. So simply switching from one kind of vehicle to a different kind of vehicle isn't going to help with that. There are other ecological and ethical considerations with switching from combustion engine to electric vehicles. For example, extracting the lithium, cobalt, and other minerals required for EV batteries follows the same environmentally destructive and culturally irresponsible path that we've been on in the past. One positive side is that it only needs to be extracted once, unlike fossil fuels which require continuous extraction. Ultimately, we need to rethink our relationship with cars and to each other to reduce the number of vehicles on the road. By advocating for mass transit systems within our cities and high-speed rail between our cities, we'd all be a little happier and literally breathe easier. People in many countries around the world have great transit systems and don't have to worry about paying for gas, insurance, registration, parking, vehicle maintenance, and risking their lives on dangerous roadways. One of the best ways to demonstrate your support for investment in public transit is to use it. The same is true for bike lanes. Put on your helmet and replace some of your car trips with a short bike ride instead. The health benefits of biking, or even walking a few blocks to a bus stop, could be significant for someone whose body is used to sitting all day. I've experienced the mental health and physical benefits of taking the bus or riding my bike instead of driving. It's so nice to feel part of your community by engaging with your neighbors rather than being isolated in your vehicle. So what do you think is a good way to conserve energy in the transportation sector? As we've seen, there are so many ways to conserve energy in the transportation sector, and carpooling is just one of them. Carpooling reduces the number of vehicles on the road, which lowers fuel use and emissions, making it an efficient way to conserve energy. In this unit, we defined energy efficiency as achieving the same task with less energy. We also defined energy conservation as using less energy, usually through behavior change. We talked about electricity being a versatile form of energy because it can be used in very precise applications and it can be used to power huge machines and vehicles. Also, every non-renewable and renewable energy source can be used to generate electricity. We touched on why fossil fuels continue to receive huge subsidies and tax breaks to keep the current system functioning. We talked about energy efficiencies being able to get the same energy services with less energy. And finally, we talked about the many energy efficiency and conservation opportunities related to transportation.